It's the summer of 2011. My dad had just come home with two boxes, one for my older brother and another for me. They're gifts, and on my box, a picture of a black handheld is depicted. Printed are the words Nintendo 3DS. The Nintendo 3DS is a console many of you are probably familiar with. It's a console with which so many kids born in the late 90s and early 2000s have held dear, myself included. Up until the launch of the Nintendo 3DS, I shared a Game Boy Advance and a Nintendo DSi with my older brother. Hiding from my brother so I could play an hour or two of a shared Pokémon Emerald or taking turns with our DSi to race on Mario Kart DS were core memories of mine. But getting my very own 3DS allowed me to play so many more games. One of the very first few games I bought and played was The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time for the 3DS was a core part of my childhood, and probably yours too. It was a gaming experience like no other. It might have even been my very first open-world role-playing game. All of us can remember those first few moments of the game where we awaken as Link by Navi and immerse ourselves into the land of Hyrule.
Hello.
Seeing Link step foot into Kokiri Forest always makes me feel like picking up my 3DS once again and starting another adventure. Getting the Kokiri sword, going through the game's very first dungeon, witnessing the death of the Great Deku Tree, and finally going to Hyrule Castle was all just magical. Unfortunately, the Nintendo 3DS didn't have as amazing a launch as Nintendo DS systems, only launching with 9 exclusive titles in North America and 18 titles worldwide. However, similarly to its predecessor, the Nintendo 3DS was backwards compatible with all released DS games. This meant that waiting for more 3DS titles wasn't all that bad, and another summer later, in 2012, the historic sequel of probably my favorite Pokémon games of all time was released, not even for the 3DS. Although released for the DS, Nintendo ensured that 3DS users wouldn't miss out on the release of Pokémon Black 2 and White 2. Both Pokémon Black 2 and White 2 were direct sequels to Black and White, sequels being unheard of in the Pokémon franchise. But what made Pokémon Black and White so special was the Unova region. It was vast, full of things to do, and ultimately unique. Pokémon from prior generations were not made available to catch until the Elite Four were defeated, meaning that you only met native Unova Pokémon, a feature I highly support. The line drawn between older Pokémon generations and the Unova region made the region feel like its own world to explore, not just an extension of the franchise. Rather than seeing your conventional Magikarp, Eevee, or Zubat, you are still discovering new Pokémon rather than having the same ones you've seen hundreds of times resurface. Pokémon is an epic tale of adventure and exploration, a formula on which many of us look back upon and crave more. In the games, Pokémon were always described as our partners and friends. As kids, bringing our 3DS everywhere meant that we always brought our friends along for the journey. I honestly believe the Nintendo 3DS is peak Nintendo. The Nintendo DS is the second highest selling console of all time, and if you include the sales of the 3DS, the DS family beats all other competition. With a combined 230 million units sold, the DS family is 75 million units ahead of the PlayStation 2. But ultimately, the 3DS is the console I would immediately name if I needed to summarize my childhood. There are just too many reasons not to like it. Native backwards compatibility with all DS titles and even Game Boy titles via the Virtual Console, the amount of technology packed in, like stereoscopic 3D, augmented reality, dual screens with the bottom being touch, 2 cameras front and back, and an internet connection. I'm sure as kids we all used to use our 3DS to watch YouTube and even surf the web. And finally, arguably the coolest and most nostalgic-inducing feature yet, Streetpass. It's 2023, and although times are tough for a lot of us out there, my only suggestion to you is to get a 3DS. Buy one used, and relish that feeling of being a child once again, not having a care in the world and enjoying the little things. Thanks for watching, and please feel free to have a look through my Instagram or Twitter pages. Both have similar content to what I have here on YouTube.